The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting long shadows that danced across the parched earth of Dusty Hollow. A lone figure rode into town, the silhouette of a man atop a weary mare framed against the fiery orange sky. Bill Hardesty, a practical cowboy with a face weathered by years under the unforgiving sun, sat tall in the saddle. His sharp blue eyes scanned the scattered buildings that made up the town, noting the sagging roofs and dust-caked windows. Beside him, his faithful German shepherd, Roger, trotted with an air of alertness, ears perked and nostrils flaring, as if he could sense something just beyond the reach of human understanding. "Easy there, Roger," Bill said, tipping his weathered hat back to wipe the sweat from his brow. "Ain't nothing but an old ghost town left here. Just a few folks trying to scrape by, same as us." He nudged the mare forward, the rhythmic clop of her hooves mixing with the distant call of a hawk soaring above. The townsfolk were scarce, peering cautiously from behind the cracked wooden doors of their homes. A half-hearted wave here and a nod there seemed to acknowledge Bill's presence, but the eyes that met his were clouded with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Dusty Hollow had seen better days. The once bustling main street now lay silent, save for the whisper of the wind stirring the dust like restless spirits. A sign creaked above a dilapidated storefront, its paint peeling and faded. "Grimes and Sons, General Merchandise," proclaimed the rusted metal. Bill steered his horse toward the establishment, his boots hitting the ground with a dull thud as he dismounted. Roger stayed close, his instincts sharp, as if he sensed a disturbance lurking beneath the surface of this quiet town. "Let's find us a drink, boy," Bill said, scratching Roger behind the ears. "Maybe a bit of grub, too." As they pushed through the creaking door, a bell chimed faintly, its sound echoing through the shadowy interior. The smell of stale tobacco and old leather enveloped them like a shroud. Bill's keen eyes took in the sight of shelves lined with dusty jars of preserves and sacks of flour, their contents long past their prime. Old Man Grimes, stooped with age and bearing the weight of countless stories, emerged from behind the counter. "Well, if it ain't the wandering cowboy and his trusty hound," he rasped, his voice like gravel. "What brings you to these parts?" "Just passing through," Bill replied, leaning against the counter, his demeanor easy but wary. "Thought I'd stop for a spell and see what's worth eating around here." Grimes squinted, as if weighing Bill's words. "You ain't the first to wander into Dusty Hollow looking for a fresh start. Most don't last long. There's something off about this place, if you catch my drift." Bill raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Off? How's that, old-timer?" "Strange sounds in the night, they say," Grimes continued, his gaze drifting toward the window. "Whispers, howling that don't belong to the wind. Folks claim they've seen lights in the sky, dancing like fireflies, but much too bright. Some say it's the spirits of those who didn't make it out." "Spirits?" Bill scoffed lightly, though his stomach tightened at the thought. "You reckon they're just spooked? Or are we talking about something real?" "Could be both," Grimes replied, leaning closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "You see, a wagon came into town not too long ago, broke down and decayed. Much like the rest of this place, folks say it's cursed, and those who've dared to touch it have met their end in strange ways." Roger's ears pricked up, and he shifted uneasily by Bill's side, as if sensing an unseen threat. Bill felt a chill creep along his spine. "Where's this wagon now?" "Down by the old church," Grimes said, his eyes darting toward the door as if fearing he'd summoned the very spirits he spoke of. "You'd best steer clear of it, cowboy. Not much good comes from poking around in things better left alone." But Bill's curiosity was a fire that burned bright and hot, and he felt the tug of the unknown urging him forward. "Thanks for the warning, Grimes," he said, tipping his hat before stepping back out into the fading light. "But I reckon I'll have to see for myself." Roger seemed to sense the shift in Bill's resolve and let out a low growl, a warning that resonated with the atmosphere thickening around them. Bill chuckled softly, knowing full well that Roger was a loyal companion, but also a wise one. "You don't have to worry, partner. We'll just take a look, and if things get dicey, we'll hightail it out of there faster than a jackrabbit at the first sign of trouble." As they made their way toward the outskirts of town, the sky darkened, casting an eerie glow over Dusty Hollow. Shadows stretched longer, and a sense of anticipation crackled in the air like a summer storm about to break. The distant sound of something unearthly echoed through the stillness, a haunting melody that sent shivers down Bill's spine. He glanced at Roger, whose instincts were on high alert, and felt the weight of the unknown pressing down upon them. The road ahead wound toward the old church, its steeple silhouetted against the darkening sky. Bill's heart raced with each step, the stories of the wagon tugging at the edges of his mind. He was a practical man, one who didn't believe in ghost stories and old wives' tales. But something told him this night was different. They were not just heading toward a broken wagon, but toward a mystery that would change everything. And as they approached the church, the howling winds whispered secrets of the past, echoing the promise of danger that lay ahead. The wind howled through the skeletal trees that lined the path to the church, their branches clawing at the darkening sky like the bony fingers of the long-forgotten. Bill's boots crunched over the gravel, the sound mingling with the distant echo of the mysterious melody that seemed to float on the air like a ghost of forgotten hymns. Roger stayed close to Bill's side, his nose twitching as he caught the sense of the night, earthy and damp, with an undercurrent that hinted at something unnatural. As they reached the church, its weathered wooden facade loomed before them, the paint peeling like the skin of a sunburned traveler. The steeple pointed toward the heavens, but the bell that once rang in joyous celebration now lay silent, its voice lost to time. Bill's gaze fell upon the shadows that cloaked the entrance, and he took a deep breath, steeling himself for whatever awaited within. "All right, Roger," he murmured, kneeling to meet the dog's sharp, watchful eyes. "Stick close and keep your senses sharp. We don't know what might be lurking around here." Roger let out a soft whine, his ears pricked as if he understood the weight of the moment. Bill reached out, giving his loyal companion a reassuring pat before stepping toward the door. It creaked open with a reluctant groan, revealing an interior shrouded in darkness, the air thick with the scent of mildew and decay. Dust motes danced in the faint light that filtered through the cracked stained glass windows, casting fractured rainbows across the floor. Bill squinted, trying to make out the shapes that filled the space. There were old pews, their varnish long gone, and a pulpit that stood like a sentinel, its wood warped from years of neglect. "Looks like nothing but shadows and memories in here," Bill said, his voice low and steady, breaking the silence that threatened to swallow him whole. He took a cautious step inside, and Roger followed, sniffing the air with keen interest. In the far corner of the church, half hidden in the gloom, was a figure, a wagon as Grimes had described. It sagged on its wheels, the wood rotten and splintered, and the faded paint hinted at a once bright color, now muted by time and neglect. Bill approached it slowly, his heart racing. He could feel the weight of the stories wrapped around it, like a quilt stitched from fear and curiosity. "Let's see what you got for us," he muttered, reaching out to touch the wagon's side. The wood felt cold and damp beneath his fingers, as if it had absorbed the chill of the night. He circled the wagon, inspecting its contents. Old crates lay strewn about, their lids askew. One bore the mark of a long-vanished ranch brand, while another was filled with rusted tools, their edges dulled and useless. As he rummaged through the debris, a sudden sound made him freeze. Roger had halted, hackles raised, his body tense as a coiled spring. Bill turned, squinting into the shadows that clung to the far side of the church. "What is it, boy?" he whispered, his instincts kicking in. A low, rumbling growl emanated from Roger's throat, a warning that sent a shiver through Bill's spine. He reached for the knife sheathed at his belt, the familiar weight comforting against his palm. The darkness seemed to pulse, alive with the echo of something stirring. A flicker of movement caught Bill's eye, and he squinted harder, trying to pierce the veil of shadows. Suddenly, a flicker of light caught his attention, illuminating a section of the wagon's interior. Bill stepped closer, drawn by an inexplicable force. Inside the wagon, he spotted a small, weathered trunk that seemed to glow faintly in the dim light. It was ornate, its surface carved with symbols that felt oddly familiar, yet foreign. His heart raced as he approached, curiosity and caution battling within him. "What do you reckon is in there, Roger?" he asked, though he hardly expected an answer. The dog's ears twitched, and he stepped forward, sniffing the air around the trunk, as if it held the very essence of mystery. With a deep breath, Bill knelt beside the trunk and examined its lock. Rusted, but not entirely beyond hope. "Ain't much for good fortune in this town, but I reckon I'll take a chance," he said, pulling his knife free. He worked carefully at the lock, the metal creaking in protest, the tension thickening around them like a storm cloud ready to burst. As he pried it open, the hinges groaned and the trunk creaked wide, revealing its contents. Old letters, yellowed with age, and a peculiar object wrapped in faded cloth. Bill reached for it, the fabric soft yet brittle beneath his fingers. Unwrapping it revealed an amulet shimmering with an ethereal light that pulsed gently, as if alive. "Now, what have we here?" Bill breathed, his voice barely above a whisper. The amulet was adorned with the same symbols that had decorated the trunk, and he felt an unshakable sense of history surrounding it, a connection to the tales Grimes had spun of lost souls and restless spirits. Roger barked suddenly, breaking the stillness, and Bill snapped back to reality, feeling a chill crawl up his spine. "Easy, boy," he soothed, but his eyes darted back to the shadows, sensing they were no longer alone. The air thickened, crackling with an energy that made his skin prickle. From the corner of his eye, he caught a flicker of movement. An ephemeral figure materialized, a ghostly outline of a woman clad in white, her face a mask of sorrow. She hovered near the wagon, her eyes locked onto Bill, filled with a longing that transcended time. A whisper of wind swept through the church, carrying with it the scent of wildflowers and an echo of a forgotten lullaby. Bill's heart raced, and he gripped the amulet tightly, feeling its warmth against his palm. "What do you want from me?" he asked, his voice steady despite the rising tide of fear. The woman's lips moved, but no sound came forth, only the echo of her silent plea. Roger growled softly, inching closer, ready to protect his master. Bill's instincts kicked into high gear, and he knew he had stumbled into something far deeper than mere superstition. As the ghostly figure began to fade, a single word lingered in the air, a whisper of desperation that chilled him to the bone. "Help." And with that, the shadows deepened, the weight of the past pressing in around him as the mystery of Dusty Hollow tightened its grip, ensnaring him in a web woven from the threads of tragedy and hope. Bill's breath quickened, the air around him thick with an otherworldly tension. The spectral figure had vanished, but the lingering chill wrapped around him like a ghostly shroud. He could still feel Roger's presence at his side, the dog's instincts sharper than a hawk's gaze. As he knelt beside the trunk, he couldn't shake the feeling that he'd stumbled upon something monumental, something that had been waiting for him in the shadows of Dusty Hollow. "Let's not dilly-dally, Roger," he murmured, his voice low and steady, as if to anchor himself amidst the swirling uncertainty. He carefully placed the amulet back in the trunk, folding the cloth around it as though it were the most precious cargo. "There's more to this story than meets the eye, I reckon." He rose, scanning the area for any sign of the ethereal woman. A gust of wind rustled the old church's timbers, sending a shiver down his spine. "Ain't no ordinary night, that's for sure," he muttered, stepping back from the wagon. The moon shone through the church's broken windows, casting jagged shadows that danced like spirits in the night. Roger stood alert, his nose twitching as he caught a scent. The dog seemed to sense something, an unseen thread that connected them to the past, a bridge to the woman's sorrow. "What is it, boy?" Bill asked, following Roger's gaze toward the church's dilapidated entrance. He felt an instinctive pull, a call to explore further. As he approached the open doorway, the cool night air carried the scent of damp earth and wild sage. The church, once a sanctuary for weary souls, now stood as a monument to lost hope. Dust motes floated in the moonlight, swirling around like memories yearning to be released. The wooden pews lay scattered, some overturned, others reduced to mere splinters. It felt as though the spirits of those who had once gathered here still lingered, whispering secrets in the dark. Bill stepped inside, Roger at his side, the dog's ears perked as he scanned the interior for any signs of life or unlife. "Come on, fella," Bill urged, his voice barely above a murmur. He moved cautiously, stepping over a broken pew, his mind racing with questions. What had happened here? What had the woman meant by help? His eyes were drawn to the altar, where remnants of a long-forgotten service lingered. A dusty Bible lay open, pages yellowed and curled, as if the words were desperate to be read once more. He approached it, the weight of the book heavy in his hands. "What do you have to say for yourself?" he asked aloud, half joking in an effort to lighten the oppressive atmosphere. As he scanned the verses, one phrase caught his eye. "For the Spirit of the Lord is upon me." Bill's brow furrowed. Was it a message from the past or a warning? He felt a connection between the scripture and the ghostly figure that had appeared to him. It was as if the words were a thread pulling him deeper into the mystery that shrouded Dusty Hollow. Roger's low growl pulled him from his reverie. "What is it, boy?" Bill whispered, and the dog pointed his nose toward a shadowed corner of the church. Bill squinted, heart pounding, and began to inch closer. The air felt electric, a tension thrumming between him and whatever lay hidden in the dark. He knelt, peering into the shadows, and spotted something glinting, a small metal box half buried beneath a layer of dirt and debris. "Well, I'll be a son of a gun," he muttered, intrigued. Bill set to work, clearing away the dust and grime until the box was fully exposed. It was unadorned, but the lock was shiny and new, contrasting sharply with the decay around it. "I reckon it's time to see what secrets you're hiding," he said, pulling out his knife once again. As he worked the blade against the lock, his thoughts flickered to the amulet and the spectral woman. "You think this could be connected?" he asked Roger, who stared intently at the box, tail still. The lock clicked open and Bill felt a rush of anticipation. He lifted the lid, and inside lay a collection of faded photographs, their edges curled and frayed. He picked one up, revealing a portrait of a young woman, strikingly similar to the ghost he had seen, a woman with sorrowful eyes and an expression that seemed to speak of lost love. "By the stars, this must be her," he breathed, the weight of the revelation settling heavily on him. He continued to sift through the photographs, each one telling a story. Faces of men and women, children smiling, a family captured in moments of joy now faded into the ether. But then, his fingers brushed against something else, a folded piece of paper, yellowed with age. He pulled it out, heart racing as he unfolded it. The handwriting was elegant yet shaky, a testament to desperation. "To whoever finds this," it began, "know that the spirits of Dusty Hollow are restless. We were betrayed, and our blood cries for justice." Bill's heart pounded in his chest, and Roger leaned closer, as if he could sense the gravity of the words. "Justice?" Bill echoed, glancing around the church. What kind of betrayal could haunt this place? As he continued reading, the letter detailed a tale of lost love and betrayal, of a woman who had been wronged, her spirit tethered to the land, seeking retribution for the wrongs inflicted upon her family. "I reckon she's been waiting for someone to hear her story," Bill murmured, feeling the weight of the past pressing against him. Roger barked softly, and Bill's gaze snapped back to the church's entrance. The air shifted again, the palpable energy of the night swirling around them. Bill sensed that time was short, that the spirits were restless. He needed to uncover the truth, both for the woman in white and for the town of Dusty Hollow itself. With renewed determination, he tucked the letter into his pocket and turned back to the altar, the shadows of the past looming ever closer. "Let's figure this out, Roger. We've got a mystery to solve," he said, his voice steady as he prepared to delve deeper into the history that had woven itself into the fabric of the church. As he stepped forward, he felt the weight of the amulet still lingering in his mind, a thread connecting him to the past, urging him onward into the unknown. The chill of the night air seeped into the old church, wrapping around Bill like a shroud. He felt the weight of history pressing down on him, every dust mote in the air, a reminder of the stories that lay buried beneath the floorboards and behind the peeling paint. Roger, his loyal dog, shifted at his side, ears perked and nostrils flaring, ever watchful of the unseen forces that danced in the shadows. "All right, boy," Bill said, glancing down at Roger, who seemed to sense the urgency in the air. "Let's get to the bottom of this mystery. We ain't got time to waste." With a determined nod, he turned back to the altar, where the remnants of forgotten prayers lingered, and focused on the details around him. The letter in his pocket felt like a lead weight, its words echoing in his mind as he scanned the room. "Betrayal," he murmured, the word tasting bitter on his tongue. It made him think of the whispered tales he'd heard in the saloon about Dusty Hollow's past, of families torn apart by greed and vengeance. He had always dismissed them as mere campfire tales meant to scare the town's children. But now, they carried an ominous weight. He stepped away from the altar and moved toward the wooden pews, their surfaces worn smooth from years of use. Bill knelt beside one of the benches and ran his fingers along the wood, searching for any signs of hidden compartments or inscriptions. "If I were a ghostly lady looking for justice, I'd leave a clue somewhere, wouldn't I?" he said aloud, half hoping the spirit might answer him. As he examined the nearby wall, a flicker of movement caught his eye. Roger whined softly and edged closer to the door. Bill turned, squinting into the dim light filtering through the cracked windows. "What is it, boy?" he whispered, rising to his feet and following Roger's gaze. The air felt thick, charged with something he couldn't quite name. The faithful dog took a few cautious steps toward the entrance, nostrils flaring. He stopped abruptly and let out a low growl, the sound reverberating through the silence like a warning bell. Bill felt a shiver race down his spine, and he reached for the knife tucked at his belt. "Steady now, Roger. We ain't alone." In that moment, a soft rustle echoed from beyond the church doors, like the whisper of a restless wind. Bill's heart raced as he stepped cautiously toward the threshold, ready to confront whatever lay outside. He swung the door open, the creaking hinges protesting against the stillness of the night. Moonlight poured in, illuminating the dusty path leading away from the church. "Hello?" Bill called out, his voice ringing with an authority he didn't quite feel. Silence answered him, thick and heavy. "If there's anyone out there, you best show yourself." He stepped into the night, Roger at his side, alert and poised. The expanse of the graveyard stretched before him, shrouded in shadows, gravestones jutting up like weary sentinels. He scanned the area, searching for signs of life or any hint of movement. Just as he was about to turn back, something caught his eye. A glimmer near a weathered grave, half hidden by tall grass. "Let's go check it out," Bill instructed, moving forward with purpose. Roger trotted beside him, sensing the shift in Bill's demeanor. As they approached the grave, Bill could see a small object glinting in the moonlight. Kneeling down, he brushed away the dirt and grass, revealing a tarnished silver locket, its intricate design barely discernible beneath layers of grime. "Well, I'll be a coyote's uncle," he said, lifting the locket into the light. "What are you doing here?" He carefully opened it, revealing two faded portraits inside, one of a young woman, the other of a man, both smiling in a moment, frozen in time. Bill's breath hitched in his throat as recognition washed over him. The woman bore a striking resemblance to the ghost he had seen. The man looked familiar too, though his features were less distinct. "This must be the family mentioned in that letter," he murmured, excitement mixing with trepidation. "But who is he? And what happened to her?" He tucked the locket into his pocket beside the letter, feeling that the pieces of this puzzle were beginning to fit together. Just then, Roger's low growl returned, sending a jolt of caution through Bill. He turned, scanning the graveyard once more. The night felt heavy, as if the very earth was holding its breath. "What do you sense, Roger?" Bill whispered, feeling the hair on the back of his neck prickle. In that moment, a sharp gust of wind swept through the graveyard, carrying with it a whisper that seemed to call his name. Bill's heart raced as he straightened, the locket still clutched tightly in his fist. "We're not alone," he breathed, glancing at Roger, whose eyes were fixed intently on the far end of the graveyard, where shadows twisted and danced. "Let's head back inside, partner," he decided, his voice steady despite the unease coiling in his gut. "We need to piece this together before the spirits decide to take matters into their own hands." As they retraced their steps back into the church, Bill felt the weight of the locket against his chest, a reminder of the stories yet to be uncovered. He knew that whatever had transpired in Dusty Hollow had left an indelible mark on the land, and it was up to him to bring the truth to light. With Roger at his side, he stepped back into the depths of the church, ready to confront the past and face the mysteries that lay ahead. The wooden door creaked shut behind them, sealing in the church's musty air. Bill leaned against it for a moment, taking a deep breath. The flickering candlelight cast long shadows across the pews, and the dust motes danced like tiny spirits in the glow. Roger remained close, his ears perked and tail tucked, ever vigilant. "All right, boy," Bill said, his voice a low rumble as he made his way back toward the altar. "We need to figure out what all this means. That locket's a piece of the puzzle, no doubt. But we gotta find out what happened to the folks that used to call this place home." He rifled through his saddlebags, pulling out a battered journal and a pencil, the leather cover worn from years of travel. "Let's see if we can't put together a timeline of events," he muttered, writing down the details he'd gathered so far. The letter, the locket, and that ghostly figure. Something's not sitting right. Roger's growl deepened again, breaking Bill from his thoughts. The dog had moved closer to the pulpit, nose to the ground, sniffing with a fervor that suggested he'd picked up on something unusual. "What is it, fella?" Bill asked, following Roger's lead. As he approached, Roger's growl turned into a whimper, his eyes darting between the wooden beams overhead and the dusty floor beneath. Bill knelt down, peering closely at the floorboards. They looked older than the rest of the church, the wood splintered and faded. "Could be there's something buried beneath here," Bill speculated, heart pounding with anticipation. "Let's see what we can uncover." With steady determination, Bill found a nearby tool and began prying at the loose boards. Dust flew into the air, making him cough. "Darn it, you'd think they'd clean this place up a bit," he muttered, but his excitement bubbled beneath the surface. The floor groaned in protest as he worked, and Roger stayed close, his instincts urging him on. After several minutes of labor, a hollow sound echoed beneath one board. Bill's heart raced as he dug his fingers into the splintered edge and yanked it free. He dropped it aside and peered down into the gaping hole. There, nestled among the dirt and cobwebs, was a small wooden box, its surface cracked but intact. "Now we're getting somewhere," he said, pulling the box out and brushing off the grime. The latch was rusty, but with a firm tug, it sprang open. Inside lay an assortment of items, a small diary, a rusted key, and a tarnished silver ring that glimmered in the candlelight. Bill picked up the diary first, flipping through the yellowed pages. The handwriting was elegant yet shaky, revealing a woman's thoughts. "Martha," he read aloud, recognizing the name mentioned in the letter. She wrote about a growing darkness in the town, of voices calling to her in the night. Bill's brow furrowed. What in tarnation happened here? Roger whined softly, his gaze fixed on the ring. Bill, curious, set the diary down and picked it up. As he held it in the flickering light, he noticed an inscription, "To my beloved, forever." "Oh, guess this belonged to Martha's husband," he mused, glancing back at the diary. But if he was here, where is he now? The atmosphere grew dense around them, as if the very air was thickening with the weight of unresolved stories. Bill felt a chill race down his spine, but he pushed it aside, his resolve solidifying. "We gotta find out what this darkness is, Roger. It's clear something happened to this family, and I reckon it ain't just ghosts." With renewed purpose, he flipped through the diary, searching for more clues. It spoke of unsettling dreams, shadows creeping closer, and a growing sense of dread that enveloped the town. One entry mentioned a well on the outskirts of Dusty Hollow, where townsfolk whispered of strange happenings. There might be something down there, Bill thought, jotting down a note. That well could be the heart of this mystery. Roger, sensing his master's urgency, nudged him with his nose, urging him to keep moving. "You're right, boy. We can't sit here waiting for answers to find us." He stuffed the diary and the ring into his saddlebag and took a deep breath. "Let's head out. We'll check out that well and see what secrets it might hold." As he made his way toward the door, the shadows seemed to shift, as if they were alive, swirling and beckoning. Bill paused, an uneasy feeling settling in his chest. "It's like the night's trying to warn us," he muttered, pushing the door open with determination. "But we ain't turning back now." The moon hung low, casting a silver sheen across the graveyard as they stepped outside. Roger stood alert, his ears twitching at every sound, ready to defend his master against whatever lurked in the dark. Together, they ventured down the path, Bill's heart racing with each step closer to the well and the secrets it might reveal. Dusty Hollow was not done with them yet, and Bill could feel the weight of the past bearing down on him, urging him to uncover the truth before it was too late. Bill stepped into the cold night air, the ghostly moonlight illuminating the path ahead. Dusty Hollow had always held an air of mystery, but tonight, the whispers of the past seemed to echo louder than ever. Roger walked close by his side, every instinct on high alert. The dog's fur bristled as they approached the edge of town, where the well lay shrouded in darkness, a sentinel of secrets long buried. "Stay sharp, Roger," Bill murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. "We don't know what we're walking into." The night was still, save for the soft crunch of their boots on the gravel and the rustling of the occasional breeze through the sparse grass. It was the kind of silence that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand at attention, a silence that carried the weight of long-held fears and buried truths. As they neared the well, the air grew heavy, as if the very ground were holding its breath. Bill's heart raced, a mix of fear and excitement coursing through him. Here's the spot," he declared, more to himself than to Roger. The old stone structure loomed before them, its edges worn and jagged, a remnant of a time when life flowed freely from its depths. Bill knelt by the well, the rough stone cool beneath his fingertips. He could see the wooden slats of the cover were rotting, splintered and half fallen away. "Ain't nothing but a decrepit old well," he said, but he felt a tightening in his gut that told him otherwise. Still, it's what Martha wrote about. Roger, ever the vigilant companion, sniffed at the ground and let out a low growl. Bill glanced at him, noticing the way his ears twitched, his nose quivering with the scent of something unknown. "What is it, boy?" he asked, curiosity piqued. Roger stepped back, his stance firm, as if he were guarding against an unseen foe. "All right, let's see what's inside," Bill said, forcing himself to focus. He reached for a nearby stone and propped it against the wooden cover, pushing it aside with a creak that echoed in the stillness. The dark maw of the well gaped before him, an abyss that threatened to swallow the light. "Darn it! I wish I had a lantern." He fished around in his saddlebag, retrieving a scrap of cloth and a few matches. With a steady hand, he struck a match against the rough wood of the well's side, lighting the cloth and holding it aloft. The flickering flame cast dancing shadows against the stone walls, revealing a depth that felt almost alive. Roger's growl deepened, the low rumble vibrating in his chest. "What is it, boy?" Bill whispered again, squinting into the darkness. He leaned closer, feeling the cool breath of the well waft against his face. The flame flickered wildly, momentarily revealing the glint of something shiny far below. "Could be nothing but old coins," Bill reasoned aloud, though his gut twisted with apprehension. "Or maybe something more." He rummaged through his bag again, pulling out a length of rope. "Let's see if we can fish it out." With Roger watching intently, Bill tied a sturdy knot around a small bucket he'd salvaged from his previous travels. He lowered it into the well, the rope creaking softly with the strain. "Hold tight, Roger," he said, keeping a steady hand on the rope. "We'll see what's hiding down there." As the bucket descended, the shadows deepened and the air grew colder. A chill crept down his spine, and Bill could have sworn he heard faint whispers rising from the depths, calling out to him. He shook his head, trying to clear his thoughts. "It's just the wind," he muttered, but the unease remained, prickling at the back of his mind. After what felt like an eternity, the bucket hit the bottom with a dull thud. Bill tugged on the rope, pulling it back up with cautious anticipation. As it emerged from the darkness, he peered inside. The bucket held a collection of old, tarnished trinkets, but one item stood out. A locket, its surface engraved with intricate designs, glinting in the light of the dying flame. "Now what in tarnation have we got here?" Bill murmured, reaching for the locket. As he opened it, the flame flickered once more, revealing a small portrait of a woman, her eyes shining with life and warmth. "Martha again," he whispered, heart sinking as he recognized her face from the diary. "But where's her husband?" Suddenly, a howl echoed through the night, slicing through the silence. Bill's heart raced, and he looked at Roger, whose ears perked up, alert and tense. "That don't sound like any coyote I ever heard." The dog growled low, a sound filled with warning. Bill's instincts kicked in. "We best get moving, Roger," he said, tucking the locket into his pocket. "Ain't no telling what's drawn to this place." He started to back away from the well, but as he turned, he noticed a shadow flit across the moonlit ground, fast and low. His breath caught in his throat. "What in the world?" Roger barked, the sound echoing against the stones as he lunged forward, teeth bared. Bill felt the rush of adrenaline surge through him. "Easy, boy. Don't go chasing shadows now." But even as he spoke, he felt a presence behind him, a cold breath against his neck that sent shivers down his spine. "Let's get back to town," he urged, moving quickly, heart thundering in his chest. The night was alive with possibilities, and as they retreated, Bill realized they had only begun to scratch the surface of Dusty Hollow's secrets. The darkness was stirring, and it was hungry. Bill and Roger hurried through the brush, the moonlight casting ghostly shadows that danced among the trees. Each crack of a twig beneath their feet echoed like a gunshot in the silence, and Bill could feel the hair on the back of his neck prickling. The howl that had pierced the night still lingered in his mind, a haunting reminder that something was out there, watching. "Come on, Roger. We gotta put some distance between us and that well," Bill urged, glancing back nervously. The night seemed to grow thicker, the air heavy with an unease that clung to him like a second skin. Roger moved with a keen awareness, his nose to the ground, ears perked as he scanned the shadows, a constant sentinel against the unknown. They reached the edge of the clearing, where the trees thinned out and the path to town lay ahead. Bill paused, scanning the horizon. In the distance, the lights of Dusty Hollow flickered like fireflies, a beacon of safety against the vast, encroaching dark. He took a deep breath, willing himself to calm down. "Just a shadow, Bill. Just a shadow," he muttered, trying to shake off the chill that had settled in his bones. "Let's make tracks," he said, giving Roger a nod. They resumed their trek, but the weight of the locket in his pocket felt heavier with every step. It was as if it pulsed with secrets waiting to be uncovered, mysteries that could pull him deeper into the heart of something far more sinister than he had bargained for. As they entered town, the familiar sounds of the saloon spilled into the street, laughter, raucous shouts, and the clinking of glasses. It was a stark contrast to the silence of the wilderness they had just fled. Bill stepped into the warm glow of the saloon, the scent of whiskey and wood smoke wrapping around him like a comforting blanket. "Evening, Bill," called out Old Man Jenkins from the corner table, his voice gravelly and welcoming. "Where you been wandering off to? Looking a bit pale, if you don't mind me saying." "Just exploring a little," Bill replied, trying to sound casual. "Found an old well out near the edge of town." "Old well?" Jenkins squinted, his interest piqued. "You ain't been messing around with that thing, have you? Folks say it's cursed." Cursed, Bill echoed, the word curling around his thoughts like smoke. What do you mean? Strange things happen to folks who linger too close to it, Jenkins said, leaning in as if to share a secret. They say a miner went missing after he found something down there. Ain't nobody seen him since, just whispers in the wind now. Bill's heart sank. The missing miner, could it be connected to the portrait of Martha? He remembered the locket, the way it felt against his leg, its weight bearing down with a sense of urgency. Jenkins, you know where I might find any records about that miner? Bill asked, his voice steady, despite the racing of his heart. Sure do, Jenkins replied. Head over to the sheriff's office. They keep a log of all the folks who passed through. Might find what you're looking for there. Thanks, old man. Bill tipped his hat and moved toward the door, Roger at his heels, his presence a steadying force. The sheriff's office was just a stone's throw away, and as he stepped back into the night, the cool air seemed to carry a whisper of foreboding. The sheriff's office was quiet, save for the soft scratch of a quill pen against parchment. Sheriff Tom McCready looked up as Bill entered, his brow furrowing with recognition. What brings you here, Bill? You ain't in trouble, are you? No, sir, Bill replied, shaking his head. Just looking for information about a miner who went missing near the old well. Name was Caleb Pritchard. McCready's expression darkened as he leaned back in his chair. Caleb Pritchard, eh? That's a name I ain't heard in a long while. He was a good man, worked hard, but one day he just up and vanished. Folks started saying he found something down in that well, something that don't belong to this world. What do you mean by that? Bill asked, his curiosity piqued. The sheriff sighed, a cloud of unease hanging in the air. They say he got too close to a treasure that wasn't meant for mortal hands. Rumors of ghostly apparitions and strange lights at night. A lot of folks left Dusty Hollow after that. I reckon you ought to be careful, Bill. Bill felt the weight of the locket in his pocket again, the urge to uncover the truth driving him onward. I appreciate the warning, Sheriff. I'll keep my wits about me. As he exited the office, Roger gave a low whine, sensing the tension that hung thick in the air. I know, boy, Bill murmured, placing a reassuring hand on Roger's back. We're onto something big, I can feel it. They wandered through the streets, the moon casting long shadows, illuminating the path ahead. The town, once a refuge, now felt like a labyrinth of secrets waiting to ensnare him. The locket, the whispers, and the shadows all converged in his mind, weaving a tale that begged to be unraveled. Bill's resolve hardened. He would dig deeper, search for the truth behind the cursed well and the fate of Caleb Pritchard. The frontier was alive with mystery, and though the night was dark, he wouldn't let fear deter him from uncovering what lay beneath the surface. The echoes of the past were calling, and Bill intended to answer. The night air carried a chill that crept under Bill's skin as he and Roger made their way back toward the edge of town. Dusty Hollow, once a place of promise and prosperity, now felt like a cradle for secrets better left buried. The distant sound of hooting owls punctuated the stillness, and with every step, the weight of the locket in his pocket seemed to pull him closer to the edge of danger. Come on, Roger, he whispered, motioning for the dog to stay close. The faithful hound's ears perked up, his nose twitching as he caught the scent of something unsettling on the wind. Bill could feel the tension radiating from the dog, a shared instinct that told him they were not alone. They reached the outskirts of town, where the buildings gradually thinned, giving way to the sprawling desert. Bill squinted toward the shadowy outline of the old well, half buried under overgrown weeds and dirt. Moonlight glinted off its weathered stones, and for a moment it seemed to beckon him like an old friend with a sinister secret. Let's see what's hiding in there, Bill said under his breath, knowing full well the danger that lay ahead. Roger stayed alert, his body tense as they approached the well. Bill knelt beside the crumbling stone structure, feeling the cool earth beneath his fingers. He pulled out the locket, holding it up to the moonlight. It glimmered with a strange allure, as if it were alive with stories untold. Maybe this'll give us a clue, he murmured, turning it over. On one side, the engraving of Martha's portrait stared back at him, and on the other, a cryptic symbol that resembled a twisted vine encircling a star. It sent a shiver down his spine, stirring an old memory of a tale his grandmother used to tell, a story of lost treasures cursed by the spirits of the earth. Bill glanced at Roger, whose golden eyes were fixed on the well, unwavering. "What do you sense, boy?" he asked softly. The dog growled low, a warning that made the hairs on the back of Bill's neck stand up. He knew Roger could feel the weight of the air, the tension thick as molasses. With resolve, Bill decided to look deeper into the well. He pulled a length of rope from his saddlebag, tying one end securely around his waist. "If I go down, you keep watch up here, all right?" He patted Roger's head, his heart racing at the thought of what he might find. With a deep breath, he peered over the edge, the darkness yawning below him like an abyss. He could see nothing but blackness, the cold breath of the well seeming to reach up and whisper secrets in his ear. He began to lower himself, inch by inch, the rope creaking softly against the weight of his body. As he descended, the air grew colder, and a strange humming sound began to fill his ears. It wasn't the wind, nor the sound of a creature lurking in the shadows. It was almost melodic, echoing from the depths. Bill's heart raced, adrenaline coursing through his veins as he braced himself against the stones, trying to keep his thoughts steady. "Just a little further," he muttered, his voice swallowed by the darkness. He reached the bottom, his feet finding a solid surface. He let go of the rope and took a moment to adjust to the dim light filtering in from above. Before him lay the remnants of a bygone era. Old wooden beams crisscrossed above his head, and the ground was littered with stones, remnants of what looked like an old mining operation. A chill ran down his spine as he spotted something glimmering in the dirt, something metallic. Bill knelt down, brushing the dust away with his fingers, revealing a rusted lantern. He turned it over, and his breath caught in his throat. An inscription ran along the rim. "To those who seek the light, beware the shadows." He felt a shiver of dread, as if the very air around him had shifted. Suddenly, Roger's bark echoed from above, sharp and piercing. Bill's heart raced as he scrambled to his feet. The humming sound had grown louder, vibrating through the stones beneath him. He looked around, feeling the weight of unseen eyes upon him. "Roger, I'm coming back up," he shouted, racing toward the rope. But as he turned, something flickered in the corner of his eye, a shadow darting between the remnants of the old mine. Bill froze, his heart pounding in his chest. It was a fleeting glimpse, but enough to make him question if he was truly alone. The lantern felt heavy in his hand, a weight of history and mystery. "Let's get out of here," he muttered, scrambling to the rope, his palms clammy with sweat. He began to climb, the humming sound intensifying, as if something was trying to reach out to him from the depths of the well. He could almost hear whispers in the wind, the echoes of lost souls warning him to turn back. With every pull, he could feel the coldness of the well seeping into his bones. And just as he reached the top, a gust of wind rushed past him, stirring the dust and debris. Bill pulled himself over the edge, gasping for breath, and was met by Roger, who had not moved an inch, his eyes wide and watchful. "What in tarnation was that?" Bill gasped, trying to shake off the feeling of dread that clung to him. Roger growled softly, his stance protective, and Bill patted his side. "I reckon we've stirred up something we ain't ready to face." With the lantern clutched tightly in one hand and the locket in the other, he scanned the night sky, feeling the weight of the frontier around him. The secrets of the well were deeper than he had anticipated, and he knew that whatever lay ahead would demand more than just courage. It would require a reckoning with the shadows that haunted the land. "Let's head back to town," Bill said, determination solidifying his resolve. "I got a feeling we're just scratching the surface of this mystery." As they turned toward Dusty Hollow, the echoes of the past whispered around them, urging them forward into the unknown. The moon hung high in the ink-black sky, casting a silvery glow over the rugged landscape as Bill and Roger made their way back to Dusty Hollow. The chill of the night air wrapped around them like a shroud, and the distant rustle of leaves whispered secrets only the night could know. The lantern, now a guide against the encroaching darkness, swung gently from Bill's hand, its rusted metal creaking softly with each step. Roger kept close, his nose twitching, ears pricked up as if he could sense the unseen mysteries that loomed just beyond the reach of the lantern's light. Bill could almost feel the pulse of the land beneath his boots, a heartbeat that thrummed with life and death, and everything in between. "Seems like the deeper we dig, the more tangled the web gets," Bill muttered to Roger, who responded with a low growl, eyes scanning the shadows. The dog was as astute as any frontier scout, and Bill trusted him more than he did most folks he'd met. There was a certain understanding between them, a bond forged through hard times and shared adventures. As they approached the outskirts of town, the familiar outline of the saloon came into view, its windows glowing with the warm light of laughter and the clink of glasses. Bill felt a pang of longing for the company of the townsfolk, but he knew the answers he sought would not be found among the friendly faces. Not yet, anyway. He made his way to the stable first, where he tethered his horse, Dusty, to a post and retrieved a lantern from a shelf. The smell of hay and leather filled the air, grounding him. He fumbled with the rusted lantern he'd found in the well, placing it on a wooden crate beside him. "Let's see what you've got hiding in your belly," he said, studying the inscription again. "To those who seek the light, beware the shadows." With a pocket knife, he began to scrape away at the grime, revealing more of the lantern's surface. It was a simple design, but there was a peculiar engraving on the base, something that looked like a map, albeit faded and worn. Bill squinted, his brow furrowing in concentration. Now what in Sam Hill is this supposed to lead to? Roger sniffed the air, letting out a soft whine. Bill looked down at him, surprised. "You smell something, boy?" The dog's nose twitched, and he began to pace, his body tense with anticipation. "All right, let's go see what you've got in mind," Bill said, pocketing the lantern with the map and following Roger out of the stable. They made their way toward the edge of town, where the streets faded into open range, the stars twinkling like diamonds scattered across a black velvet canvas. As they walked, the wind began to pick up, carrying with it the scent of sagebrush and something else, something musky and ancient, like the remnants of a campfire long extinguished. Bill's instincts flared. "Doesn't smell right, does it, partner?" He kept his voice low, aware of the weight of the night pressing in around them. Roger stopped suddenly, his body rigid. He let out a low growl that rumbled deep in his throat, and Bill felt a shiver run down his spine. "Easy now, boy," he whispered, moving closer to his dog. Ahead, the silhouette of an old homestead loomed, its once proud structure now sagging and hollow. The moonlight cast eerie shadows against the walls, and a sense of foreboding seeped into Bill's bones. He felt drawn to the place, as if the very earth beneath his feet beckoned him forward. "Let's take a gander," he said, though doubt gnawed at him like a hungry coyote. The lantern swung from his hand, illuminating the porch steps that creaked ominously underfoot. Each sound echoed in the stillness, a reminder that they were not alone in this vast and untamed land. Roger edged closer, nose twitching with an urgency Bill recognized all too well. "You smelled something again?" Bill asked, glancing down at his companion. Roger barked softly, almost pleadingly. "All right, I hear you." They stepped into the homestead, where the air felt thick and stale, as if it had been trapped for years. Dust motes danced in the beam of the lantern light, and the shadows seemed to writhe along the walls, alive with memories of laughter and sorrow. Bill moved carefully, his eyes scanning the room for signs of life or death. In the corner, something caught his eye. A series of old photographs lined the wall, faded faces staring back at him. There was a family there, smiles frozen in time, and yet something felt off. The eyes of the subjects appeared to follow him, shifting ever so slightly in the flickering light. Bill swallowed hard, his gut twisting with unease. "Now, ain't that a sight?" he muttered, stepping closer to inspect the images. Each face told a story, but it was the last photograph that sent a chill through him. A man stood at the center, an unmistakable intensity in his gaze, surrounded by what appeared to be a gathering of townsfolk. And there, tucked in the man's hand, was a lantern identical to the one Bill had found. "Could it be?" Bill whispered, a sense of disbelief washing over him. "What do you reckon, Roger?" He turned, but the dog had taken a few steps back as if sensing something he could not see. Bill followed his gaze, and the hair on his arms prickled. A shadow flickered at the edge of the lantern's glow, darting just beyond the threshold. Bill's heart raced as he grasped the lantern tightly, its cool metal grounding him amidst the rising tension. "I've had about enough of this," he said. But even as he spoke, he felt the weight of the shadows press in around him, whispering tales of those who had come before him. "Let's head back, boy," he said, his voice steady despite the dread creeping up his spine. But as he turned to leave, the lantern flickered violently, casting strange shapes across the walls. Bill froze, instinctively reaching for Roger, whose growl had escalated to a low, fierce warning. "Whatever's lurking in these shadows ain't friendly," Bill murmured, his breath hitching in his throat. He took a cautious step back, the lantern illuminating the doorway ahead. Whatever had been lost to the darkness was now stirring, and he felt the pull of the mystery tighten around him like a noose. "Time to skedaddle," he said, as he moved towards the exit, the chill of the night enveloping him as they stepped back into the open air. The secrets of the land were not ready to be uncovered, not just yet, and Bill could feel the shadows closing in, their stories waiting for the right moment to be told. With Roger by his side, he knew they would face whatever lay ahead, but for now, they needed to regroup and plan their next move. The frontier was fraught with danger, and Bill was determined to uncover the truth, one piece at a time. As Bill stepped back into the cool night air, the sense of unease settled like a heavy cloak on his shoulders. The homestead stood behind him, a dark sentinel of forgotten times, and he could feel its secrets thrumming beneath the surface, like a river waiting to burst its banks. Roger, still on high alert, paced beside him, his ears perked and eyes scanning the surrounding darkness. "Come on, Roger," Bill urged, his voice low. "Let's make tracks before whatever that was decides to follow us." He could feel the weight of the lantern in his hand, its light flickering against the shadows that danced along the ground. He had seen too much in his years as a cowboy to ignore the signs that this place held a tale darker than the night itself. They made their way down the creaking porch and onto the hard-packed earth, the sound of their boots crunching softly against the gravel. Bill glanced back at the homestead, a crumbling figure silhouetted against the starlit sky. "We'll be back," he muttered under his breath, a promise to himself. "You just wait." As they headed toward the decayed wagon, Bill couldn't shake the feeling that the shadows were watching, waiting for him to make a mistake. The wagon sat like a forgotten relic, its wheels half buried in the dirt, and he felt a strange compulsion to inspect it further. He squatted low, the cool night air brushing against his skin, and took a closer look at the rusted metal fittings and worn wooden frame. "Let's see what secrets you've got, old girl," he murmured, running his fingers along the splintered wood. A low whine from Roger pulled his attention. The dog had settled into a watchful stance, sniffing the air with a seriousness that Bill had come to respect. "You smell something again?" Bill asked, rising to his feet and tilting his head toward his companion. Roger let out a sharp bark, then turned toward the wagon with an urgency that couldn't be ignored. All right, I'm coming." Bill stepped around the wagon, careful not to disturb anything that might hold a clue. His lantern cast a warm glow that illuminated the ground, revealing a series of shallow tracks leading away from the wagon, footprints that were not his own. They were too small, perhaps a child's, and they weaved erratically toward the dense brush nearby. "Looks like we ain't the only ones drawn to this spot," he said, a mix of concern and curiosity bubbling within him. Roger sniffed at the ground, his tail twitching as he followed the trail with an intent that told Bill they needed to investigate further. "Let's track 'em down, boy," Bill decided, feeling the thrill of the chase override his earlier apprehension. He adjusted the lantern, its light steady in the night, and began to follow the prints. The grass crunched softly underfoot as they ventured into the thickening darkness, the silhouettes of the trees surrounding them like sentinels. The air grew cooler, a chill creeping in that seemed to whisper warnings, and Bill's heart raced as he caught glimpses of something pale flitting just out of reach. It was like a wisp of smoke, vanishing as quickly as it appeared. "What in tarnation?" he muttered, shaking his head to clear the growing fog of unease. As they pressed on, Bill's thoughts wandered back to the photographs in the homestead. The intensity in the man's gaze, the lantern he had clutched, and the way the eyes in those pictures seemed to follow him. "Roger," he whispered, crouching low. "What do you reckon that man was guarding? What's got him all riled up?" Roger's ears perked up, and he let out a soft whine, eyes darting toward the shadows. Bill felt a sudden rush of cold air, as if something unseen had passed between them. "We're not alone," he breathed, the words hanging in the air like a challenge. The tracks led deeper into the trees, where the brush grew thicker and the moonlight struggled to break through the canopy above. Bill felt an instinctual pull, urging him onward, yet he kept a wary eye on the shadows around him. "Easy does it, partner," he murmured, shifting the lantern to his other hand. Suddenly, a faint sound drifted through the stillness, a soft, ghostly whisper that seemed to call his name. Bill paused, heart racing, straining to catch the words that flowed like a stream just beyond reach. "What in the name of—" He turned to Roger, whose posture had shifted to one of alertness, muscles taut and ready. "Did you hear that?" Bill asked, holding his breath as he tried to make sense of the unsettling sensation that filled the air. Roger whined again, a low, cautious sound that sent a ripple of dread through Bill's chest. "Let's go back," he said, the decision forming in his mind. "We'll find out what's going on, but not in the dark of night with whatever that is lurking about." As they retraced their steps, Bill couldn't shake the feeling that the woods had come alive, the shadows thickening and stretching around them. The lantern's glow flickered like a heartbeat, and the whispering grew louder, a cacophony of voices swirling in a tempest of sound. "Keep your wits about you," he instructed Roger, feeling the weight of the unknown press down upon him. The chill in the air wrapped around them like a shroud, and as they reached the edge of the clearing, Bill turned one last time to glance back into the darkness, the shadows now writhing like restless spirits. "Tomorrow we'll uncover the truth," he vowed, determination igniting within him. "You and me, boy, will shine a light on these shadows and see what's hiding in the dark." Dune. The shadows of the trees seemed to close in on Bill and Roger as they made their way back to the Decayed Wagon, a sense of urgency driving them forward. The whispers faded, but the chill remained, a tangible reminder of the unknown that lurked just out of sight. Bill's mind raced, wrestling with questions that clawed at his thoughts like a wildcat at the door. As they emerged from the thicket, the lantern's light flickered against the weathered wood of the wagon, casting elongated shadows that danced like phantoms across the ground. Bill paused, feeling a pull to investigate further, even as the memory of those ghostly whispers lingered at the edges of his mind. "All right, boy," he said, kneeling beside the wagon. "Let's see what else we can find." With the lantern held high, he examined the creaking structure, running his fingers along the faded paint and splintered wood. There was something about the way the wagon had settled into the earth, almost as if it was reluctant to leave behind the secrets it held. Roger, ever watchful, circled the perimeter, sniffing with intent as if the air itself might offer him clues. "See anything, Roger?" Bill asked, his voice low. The dog paused, ears perked, then darted toward a corner of the wagon where the ground was soft and disturbed. Bill followed, curiosity peaking as he crouched beside his loyal companion. "What you got there?" The earth was churned up, small tufts of grass uprooted, as if something had clawed its way through. Bill could feel a shiver of apprehension creep up his spine. "Could be a critter," he murmured, but Roger's growl suggested otherwise. The dog had a knack for sensing danger, and right now he was on high alert. Bill reached down to brush away the loose dirt, revealing a small, weathered box half buried beneath the earth. The wood was rotting, and the metal clasp was rusted shut, but it held an aura of significance. "What have we here?" he said, excitement mingling with trepidation. With a gentle tug, he pried the box free, wiping the dirt from its surface. "Hold on, Roger," he instructed as the dog leaned in closer, sniffing the box with great interest. Bill carefully examined it, looking for any sign of how to open it. It's seen better days, that's for sure. He noticed faint etchings on the lid, symbols that appeared to swirl and twist into one another, an intricate design that seemed almost alive under the lantern's glow. "Maybe there's something worth uncovering inside," he mused aloud, but the clasp resisted his attempts to pry it open. "Looks like it might need a little persuading." He glanced around and then reached for a sturdy rock nearby, its surface rough and jagged. With a firm but careful hand, he struck the clasp, and with a reluctant creak, the lid sprang open, revealing a jumble of tattered papers and a small glass vial that rolled slightly as the box tilted. Roger's nose twitched, and he let out a low whine as Bill carefully lifted the vial. The liquid inside was a cloudy blue, swirling as if it held secrets of its own. "What in tarnation is this?" Bill wondered aloud, turning the vial to catch the lantern light. Some kind of potion? Or maybe something more sinister? He laid the vial down gently, focusing on the papers. As he sifted through the brittle sheets, words and phrases began to emerge, fragments of a story woven with fear and desperation. There were notes about a child lost to the wilderness and whispers of a ghost that roamed the woods, seeking something or someone. Bill's pulse quickened as he pieced together the fragments, the mystery deepening around him. "Roger, listen to this," he said, excitement threading through his voice. "They were looking for a child that went missing not far from here, and it sounds like the ghost was trying to guide them." He glanced at the dog, whose eyes reflected the flickering light. Maybe that ghost is tied to the wagon, or maybe it's the key to finding that child. Bill's heart raced as he thought about what lay ahead. We can't just leave this be. We need to find out where that ghost is leading us, and maybe we can solve this mystery once and for all. The thrill of the chase rekindled within him, his resolve hardening like iron. He quickly stowed the vial and the papers back into the box, careful to keep them protected. "Let's head back to the homestead and gather supplies. We'll need to be ready for whatever we might find." Roger barked in agreement, tail wagging, as if he sensed the adventure that awaited them. Bill straightened up, glancing back toward the woods, where the whispers still lingered in the air, a reminder that the secrets of the night were not yet fully revealed. With his lantern held high and Roger by his side, they made their way back, the path illuminated before them. "Tomorrow, we'll follow the trail of that ghost," he said, a steely determination in his voice. "And who knows, maybe we'll uncover a tale worth telling, a tale that's been buried in the dark for far too long." As they neared the homestead, the weight of the night settled around them, thick with promise and trepidation. Bill felt the lingering gaze of the past upon him, an unspoken challenge, urging him to unravel the mysteries that had woven themselves into the very fabric of the land. The sun would rise soon enough, and with it, the hope of discovering the truth hidden beneath the shadows. The first rays of dawn broke over the horizon, casting a golden light across the rugged landscape. Bill stirred awake, the remnants of dreams tangled in his mind, each one filled with shadowy figures and distant cries that echoed like whispers of the past. He shook off the unease, remembering the discoveries made the night before. The wooden box and its curious contents lay on the table, and the blue vial caught the morning light, glinting like a gemstone amidst the dust motes that danced in the sunbeams. "Time to get cracking, Roger," Bill said, reaching down to scratch the dog behind the ears. Roger yawned, stretching his long limbs before bounding to the door, tail wagging with palpable excitement. The day felt charged, as if the very air was pregnant with secrets waiting to be unraveled. After a quick breakfast of hardtack and coffee, nothing fancy but it filled the belly, Bill gathered his supplies. A sturdy rope, a few tools, a couple of biscuits for the road, and the box with its spectral contents. "Best be prepared for anything, eh?" He chuckled to Roger, who seemed to agree with a sharp bark. With the sun climbing higher, Bill stepped outside, his boots crunching against the gravel path that led to the woods. He paused at the edge of the clearing, looking at the trees standing tall like sentinels, their gnarled branches reaching out with a life of their own. The wind rustled through the leaves, carrying with it a hint of something, an ancient sorrow that seemed to seep from the very ground. "Let's see what lies beyond," he said, pushing aside the growing apprehension. He stepped into the cool shade, Roger close at his heels, ever watchful. The world around them transformed. The chirps of birds were muted, replaced by a distant sound that sent a chill down Bill's spine, a low, haunting wail that echoed through the woods like a lost soul searching for peace. "Keep your nose sharp, boy," Bill instructed, his voice steady despite the tightening in his gut. Roger nodded, ears perked, scanning the underbrush for any sign of movement. The duo pressed deeper into the thicket, Bill relying on his instincts as a tracker. He examined the ground closely, searching for signs of passage or anything that might lead them closer to the heart of the mystery. After a short spell, they came across a clearing where the trees parted like an audience in rapt attention. In the center stood a dilapidated cabin, its roof sagging as if it were bowing to the weight of the years. The walls were weather-beaten and cracked, and a wild tangle of weeds encroached upon the porch like fingers reaching out to reclaim what once was. "Looks like a ghost town, don't it?" Bill said, a faint grin tugging at the corners of his mouth, but Roger was tense, his body low, nose twitching as he sniffed the air. The dog's instincts were sharp, and Bill knew better than to ignore them. "All right, let's take it slow," he whispered, moving cautiously toward the cabin. As they approached, the door creaked open with a reluctant groan, as if the cabin itself were inviting them in, or warning them to stay away. The interior was dark, shadows clinging to the corners like old memories. Dust hung in the air, thick and heavy, and Bill could almost hear the echoes of laughter and sorrow that had once filled the space. "Let's see what we can find, partner," he said, stepping inside, Roger following closely, his fur bristling at the nape of his neck. They began to search through the remnants of the past, pushing aside broken furniture and discarded belongings that spoke of lives once lived. A half-torn quilt lay draped over a chair, and beside it a rusted lantern. Bill picked it up, inspecting the glass. "Might still work," he muttered, turning it in his hands. He set it down on the table, where a set of old papers caught his eye. With careful fingers, he reached for them, uncovering faded letters and a crumbling map. "Look here, Roger," he said, his heart racing as he studied the map. "This might lead us to where that child went missing." His eyes widened as he traced a route marked with faint, jagged lines that seemed to snake their way through the very woods they stood in. Suddenly, Roger let out a low growl, his gaze fixed on a dark corner of the room. Bill turned, a chill creeping up his spine as he squinted into the shadows. "What is it, boy?" he whispered, heart thumping in his chest. The air felt charged, and a cold draft swept through the cabin, carrying with it a whisper that lingered like smoke. Then from the corner of his eye, Bill caught a fleeting glimpse of something, an outline, pale and shimmering, almost like a reflection caught in a mirror. He blinked, and it was gone, leaving only the unsettling silence behind. "Did you see that?" he asked Roger, whose hackles were raised, eyes fixed on the same spot. "I swear I just saw—" Bill's voice trailed off, uncertainty creeping in. He had come seeking answers, but the ghostly presence only deepened the mystery. With renewed determination, he turned back to the map, tracing the lines once more. "If we follow this path," he said, "it might lead us straight to where they last saw that child." He felt a thrill of hope, mixed with a twinge of fear. Whatever awaited them in the woods, they would face it together, and perhaps, just perhaps, they would uncover the truth that had been hidden for far too long. Roger barked, snapping Bill from his thoughts, the dog's instincts urging him to move. "Right then, let's be on our way," Bill said, rolling the map and tucking it safely into his pocket. With a shared glance of understanding, they stepped out of the cabin and back into the light, ready to face whatever the day and the mysteries of the past had in store. The wind whispered around them, and with it came a promise of adventure, a tale waiting to be told, deep in the heart of the untamed frontier. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows that danced among the trees as Bill and Roger made their way back into the thicket. The map, crumpled and worn, felt heavy in his pocket, each bump and crease a reminder of the path they were about to tread. The air was thick with the scent of pine and damp earth, and as they moved deeper into the woods, Bill's senses sharpened. He could almost feel the weight of history pressing down on him, urging him to uncover what lay hidden beneath the surface. "Keep your nose to the ground, boy," Bill murmured, glancing down at Roger, who trotted close by, his tail flicking with a mix of eagerness and caution. The dog was more than just a companion. He was a steadfast partner in this pursuit of truth, and Bill trusted him implicitly. "If there's any sign of the child or that spectral outline, we'll find it together." Roger paused, sniffing intently at a patch of earth where the underbrush had been disturbed. Bill knelt beside him, examining the ground closely. There were small footprints, perhaps of a child, leading deeper into the woods. They were faint but unmistakable, a glimmer of hope amidst the uncertainty. "Looks like we're on the right track, partner," Bill said, his voice low and steady. He felt a surge of determination, the kind that came when a man was on the brink of uncovering something profound. "Let's follow these tracks and see where they take us." As they pressed onward, the woods grew denser, the canopy above thickening until only slivers of sunlight broke through, painting the forest floor in patches of light and shadow. The silence was palpable, a heavy hush that seemed to swallow even the rustling leaves. Bill could feel the weight of unseen eyes watching, but he shook off the feeling, attributing it to the lore and legends that surrounded the area. Still, a shiver crept up his spine, and he tightened his grip on the map. Minutes turned into what felt like hours, yet the thrill of the chase kept them moving. The tracks led them to a small creek, its waters gurgling softly as they splashed over stones worn smooth by time. As Bill knelt to take a drink, he caught sight of something glimmering beneath the surface. "What in tarnation?" he muttered, reaching into the cool water to retrieve a small, rusted locket. The locket was delicate, its once bright gold now dulled by years of neglect. He opened it, revealing two faded photographs, one of a woman with kind eyes, the other of a cherubic child who looked strikingly familiar. His heart raced as he recognized the features, the same ones that adorned the town's missing posters. "Roger, look here," he said, holding the locket up for the dog to see. Roger sniffed curiously, ears perked as if he too sensed the gravity of the discovery. "This must belong to the child. If we can find out who this woman is, we might be able to unravel the whole mystery." A low growl broke the silence, and Roger's body stiffened, his gaze darting toward the thicket on the opposite bank. Bill followed his line of sight, heart thumping. "What's got you all riled up, boy?" Suddenly a movement caught his eye, just a flicker of something white darting between the trees. Bill stood up slowly, locket still clutched in his hand. "You see that?" he whispered, and Roger, growling softly, began to inch forward, muscles coiled like a spring. "Hold up, partner," Bill cautioned, his voice barely above a murmur. The woods felt alive, the very air vibrating with anticipation. They moved toward the thicket, Roger leading the way, his nose low and tail rigid. As they reached the edge, the underbrush parted, revealing a narrow path that twisted deeper into the woods. Bill felt a chill dance along his spine. "Something ain't right here," he muttered. He took a step forward, but Roger hesitated, planting his paws firmly on the ground. The dog's keen instincts were warning him this path might lead to danger. "All right, let's take it slow," Bill said, eyes narrowing as he scanned the area. The sun was setting, casting an eerie glow through the trees, and shadows began to stretch like fingers reaching for him. He felt the urge to turn back, yet the pull of the mystery was too strong. "We're looking for the truth, boy, and we ain't turning tail now." Just then, A soft sound echoed through the trees, a child's laughter, innocent and bright, floating on the breeze like a ghostly hymn. Bill's heart leapt into his throat, and he exchanged a glance with Roger, who had gone still, his ears perked as he listened intently. "That's got to be her," Bill breathed, urgency clawing at his insides. "Come on, let's go." They stepped onto the path, its surface uneven and littered with fallen leaves, each crunch beneath their boots echoing like a gunshot in the stillness. Bill's heart raced as the laughter echoed again, leading them deeper into the woods, the sound weaving through the trees like a siren's call. As they pressed on, the laughter faded, replaced by an unsettling silence that wrapped around them like a shroud. The shadows seemed to deepen, and the air grew colder, making the hairs on the back of Bill's neck stand on end. He glanced back at Roger, who remained alert, sniffing the air as though he could sense the unseen. "Stay close, partner," Bill whispered, his voice barely above a breath. "Whatever we find, we face it together." With each step, the weight of the mystery pressed down upon him, and he knew that whatever awaited them in the darkened woods, it would change everything. The frontier held its secrets tight, and he was determined to pry them loose, even if it meant facing the specters of the past. The wind whistled through the trees, carrying the faintest hint of something, a warning or a promise he could not tell. But Bill was resolute. The truth was out there, and he was going to find it. Bill pressed onward, the cool, damp air thickening around him as shadows deepened with the setting sun. Each step felt heavier than the last, as if the very ground beneath his boots bore the weight of secrets long buried. He could feel Roger's steady presence at his side, the dog's instincts sharp as a rattler's bite, ever on alert. The path twisted and turned, snaking its way through towering pines that loomed like sentinels, their branches whispering secrets to one another. Bill's heart raced, fueled by the thrill of the chase and the gnawing anxiety that came from pursuing the unknown. A glance back revealed only the dimming light of day, but the woods ahead remained cloaked in a palpable mystery, as if the trees themselves were hiding something sinister. "Darn it, I reckon this place could swallow a man whole," he muttered, trying to shake off the feeling of being watched. The locket hung heavy in his pocket, a reminder of the child whose laughter had beckoned him deeper into the dark. "But I ain't no coward, and I won't back down now." Roger stopped suddenly, his nose twitching as he caught a scent that hung in the air like smoke from a dying campfire. Bill halted too, crouching low to Roger's level. "What is it, boy?" he asked, voice low and cautious. The dog let out a low whine, ears pinned back, clearly unsettled. Following Roger's gaze, Bill noticed a clearing up ahead, a patch of sunlight breaking through the canopy like a spotlight on a stage. "Let's see what we got," he urged, and they moved cautiously toward the light. As they emerged from the dense thicket, Bill's breath caught in his throat. The clearing held an old, weathered cabin, its once vibrant wood now gray and splintered, draped in ivy that clung like a desperate lover. It seemed to have been abandoned for years, the windows dark like eyes watching him. "Well, I'll be," he breathed, stepping further into the clearing. The cabin stood alone, surrounded by a circle of towering trees that seemed to guard its secrets. Roger moved ahead, his nose to the ground, while Bill scanned the perimeter, looking for any sign of life or something else. The laughter echoed faintly again, weaving through the branches, and Bill felt it tug at his heartstrings. "Where are you, little one?" he murmured, the words barely escaping his lips. The air was thick with tension, and the silence felt heavy, like a blanket stifling his breath. Bill approached the door, its hinges rusted and screaming when he pushed it open. The door swung inward with a groan, revealing a dim interior filled with dust motes dancing in the fading light. Inside, the air was musty, carrying the scent of forgotten memories. Bill stepped over the threshold, the floorboards creaking underfoot like old bones. The room was sparsely furnished, with a table and a few chairs that looked like they hadn't been touched in ages. "Seems like no one's been here in a coon's age," he said, his voice echoing in the stillness. Roger sniffed the ground, his tail twitching nervously. "What is it, boy? Got a scent?" Bill asked, kneeling beside his companion. The dog's ears perked up, and he moved toward a corner of the room where a faded rug lay, partially covering something. Bill reached out, lifting the edge of the rug to reveal a trapdoor, the wood dark and warped. "Well, I'll be a son of a gun," he said, his pulse quickening. "What do we have here?" With a grunt, he pulled the door open, revealing a set of narrow stairs leading into the darkness below. An unsettling chill wafted up from the depths, and Bill hesitated, casting a glance back at Roger. "You stay put, partner. I'll just take a quick peek." Andrea, but Roger, ever the loyal companion, nudged Bill's leg with his nose, as if to say, "I'm with you." "All right then," Bill conceded with a wry smile, "but keep your wits about you." With a deep breath, he descended into the gloom, the narrow beams of sunlight from above fading quickly. The air grew colder, and Bill could hear the faint drip of water somewhere in the dark. Flicking a match to life, he held it up, revealing rough-hewn walls and the remnants of what once might have been a storage space, now strewn with old crates and cobwebs that danced in the flickering light. "Looks like this place is a veritable treasure trove of dust," he chuckled nervously, but his humor quickly faded as he spotted something glinting in the corner. He approached cautiously, heart pounding as he knelt to inspect. It was a small, wooden box, intricately carved with symbols that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. As he lifted it, a shiver of energy coursed through him, and he glanced at Roger, who had settled beside him, eyes wide and alert. "Just a box, just a box," Bill whispered to himself, though a voice in the back of his mind warned him otherwise. As he opened it, the light from his match illuminated several old trinkets, a weathered compass, a silver ring, and a tiny, delicate doll with glass eyes that seemed to stare right into his soul. He felt the hairs on his arms rise. What in tarnation? The moment he touched the doll, a low whisper echoed around him, a voice soft yet clear, echoing from the depths of time. "Help me," it seemed to say, a plea that sent ice racing through his veins. Bill dropped the match, darkness enveloping him as he fumbled to ignite another. Panic clawed at his chest, but the thought of the child, the laughter that had led him here, kept him grounded. "Stay close, Roger," he said, steeling himself against the encroaching shadows. The mysteries of the past were awakening, and whatever awaited him in this forsaken cabin was hungry for attention, and perhaps for more than just a simple inquiry into what had transpired here. As the candle flickered to life, he braced himself for what lay ahead, determined to uncover the truth hidden in the dark. As the flickering candle cast shaky shadows across the walls, Bill squinted into the depths of the cellar, the light revealing a patchwork of old crates and dusty relics scattered about. He could feel the weight of the air pressing down on him, heavy with secrets that had lain dormant for too long. The voice that had whispered to him still echoed in his mind, a haunting plea for help that sent chills racing down his spine. "All right, you old ghost. Let's see what else you got hiding down here," he muttered, taking a cautious step deeper into the gloom. Roger stayed close, his tail tucked and ears pinned back, but his eyes were keen and watchful, scanning the shadows for any sign of trouble. Bill moved to the nearest crate, its wooden slats warped and fragile with age. He pried it open with a careful nudge, revealing a collection of rusted tools and old farming equipment, long since forgotten. "Looks like they didn't do much plowing down here," he said, shaking his head as he rummaged through the junk. But then, he spotted something peculiar, a rusted lantern, its glass cracked yet still intact. "Could be useful," he muttered, grabbing it and inspecting it for damage. Satisfied it might still light, he tucked it under his arm and moved on, glancing back at Roger, who remained fixed at the top of the stairs, still as a statue. "Come on, boy, let's find out what's got this place all riled up," he encouraged, and Roger hesitated only a moment before following him down the narrow corridor. The cellar opened up into a larger chamber, and Bill's heart raced at the sight. The walls were lined with shelves, each one cluttered with a hodgepodge of items, old books, jars of strange substances, and what looked like a bundle of dried herbs tied with twine. He moved closer, curiosity piqued, and inspected a dusty tome that lay open on a nearby table. The writing was faded and difficult to decipher, but he caught glimpses of symbols and incantations that sent a shiver down his spine. "What in the name of the Lord is all this?" he whispered, a knot forming in his stomach. He could feel the air grow thicker, a palpable energy crackling around him, as if the very essence of the past was reaching out to ensnare him. Roger sniffed the air, tail flicking as he approached a shadowy corner of the room. Bill followed the dog's lead, his heart quickening. "What have you found, boy?" he asked, kneeling beside Roger. There, half hidden in the darkness, lay another small box, this one made of metal and adorned with etchings that seemed to shimmer in the candlelight. "Now that's a sight," Bill murmured, his fingers brushing over the cold surface. As he lifted it, he felt a jolt of energy, like static electricity, sparking at his fingertips. "Let's see what secrets you hold." "Ish." The latch clicked open with an eerie ease, and he lifted the lid slowly, revealing a collection of strange, glimmering stones nestled within. Each one pulsed with a soft light, colors swirling like the auroras of the north. Bill's breath caught in his throat. My stars, these are something else, he breathed, awe overtaking his fear. But just as he reached for one of the stones, a low growl erupted from Roger, breaking the spell. The dog's hackles rose, and he stood firm, eyes darting around the room as if sensing something Bill could not. What is it, Roger? Bill asked, glancing around, feeling the atmosphere shift. The laughter he had heard before echoed once more, a faint sound that danced on the edges of his mind. This time it felt closer, more insistent. The lantern flickered, and the shadows seemed to grow, elongating like fingers reaching for him. I reckon it's time to skedaddle, he said, anxiety tightening his chest. He grabbed the box of stones, tucking it under his arm as he backed toward the stairs. Come on, boy. We best get out of here before this place swallows us whole. As they turned to leave, a sudden cold draft swept through the chamber, chilling Bill to the bone. He felt a presence looming, something unseen but undeniably there, as if the very walls were closing in on him. We gotta move, Roger, he urged, urgency flooding his voice. Roger bounded ahead, his instincts guiding him back toward the stairs. Bill followed, each step feeling heavier, as if the ground beneath him was reluctant to let him go. Just as they reached the top, a soft, mournful whisper brushed past his ear. Help me. It was stronger now, a desperate plea that made his heart race with dread. Not today, Bill grunted, forcing himself to step outside into the open air. The sun had dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the clearing, and he took a moment to catch his breath, scanning the trees that surrounded the cabin. Roger stood beside him, tail wagging hesitantly, as if sensing the tension still lingering in the air. Bill's heart hammered in his chest, the weight of the stones in his pocket, reminding him of the mysteries that lay ahead. He turned to Roger, the dog's dark eyes full of understanding. We ain't done yet, partner. Whatever this place holds, I reckon we're just scratching the surface. With that, Bill stepped away from the cabin, the chill of the evening creeping in, and he felt a pull toward the unknown. The laughter echoed one last time, mingling with the rustle of leaves, and he couldn't shake the feeling that something, or someone, was watching him. The night was young, but the shadows were long, and the secrets of the past beckoned him forward into the darkening frontier. Bill took a moment to collect his thoughts, the shadows of the trees wrapping around him like a heavy cloak. He squinted into the dim light, filtering through the branches, trying to shake off the feeling that something was still in the air, lurking just beyond his sight. Roger, ever watchful, remained close by, his ears perked up and nostrils flaring as if catching the scent of secrets on the breeze. Let's get on, boy, Bill said, adjusting the metal box under his arm. The stones inside felt warm against his side, a curious contrast to the chill creeping into the evening air. He knew he couldn't stay idle. Curiosity was a flame that burned bright in him, and he had a hunch there was more to uncover. We need to figure out what those rocks are and what this whole shindig is about. With Roger leading the way, Bill made his way back to the horse, tied at the edge of the clearing. The mare, a sturdy creature with a coat as brown as the earth beneath their feet, nickered softly as he approached. He stroked her muzzle, calming both her and himself. Easy, girl, we've got some work to do. As he mounted up, Bill felt the weight of the day's discoveries pressing on him like a heavy pack. He settled into the saddle, glancing back at the cabin, now just a silhouette against the deepening twilight. The laughter still echoed in his mind, a haunting melody that lingered in the space between the living and the lost. Let's ride, he commanded, and they set off, following the trail that wound through the thicket. The woods around them grew denser, the trees arching overhead like watchful sentinels, the path beneath the mare's hooves crunched with dried leaves and twigs, each step echoing the tension that thrummed in the air. Bill was determined to find a place where he could examine the stones more closely, away from the prying eyes of whatever had stirred in the cabin. As they rode deeper, the sky darkened, and the first stars began to twinkle above. Bill couldn't help but glance back toward the cabin. He felt a pull, as if it were calling him back. What do you reckon, Roger? He asked, casting a sideways glance at the dog, who remained alert, scanning their surroundings with sharp, intelligent eyes. Roger barked softly, a low sound that carried a weight of warning. Bill could see the unease in the dog's posture, his body tense, ready to spring at a moment's notice. You feeling that too, huh? Bill mused, a knot of anxiety tightening in his gut. Something ain't right. We better keep our wits about us. They rode for a spell, the night enveloping them in a comforting silence, only the rustle of leaves and the soft snorting of the mare breaking the stillness. Bill spotted a clearing ahead, the faint glow of moonlight filtering through the trees. It felt right. He dismounted and led the horse into the open space, tying her to a sturdy branch. "Now let's see what these stones can tell us," he said, kneeling down on the cool grass. He pulled the metal box from beneath his arm, its surface gleaming in the moonlight, and slowly lifted the lid. The stones radiated a gentle light, casting an ethereal glow that danced across his face. "By all that's holy," he breathed, mesmerized by the colors swirling within each gem. He reached for the largest one, a deep green stone that seemed to pulse with life. As he touched it, a jolt of energy surged through him, stronger than before. Bill's heart raced, and he felt as if the very earth beneath him shifted. "Whoa there, partner," he whispered, pulling his hand back. But the stone seemed to hum in response, a low, vibrating sound that resonated in his bones. He glanced at Roger, whose ears were perked up, and he sensed the dog's unease. "What do you think it means, boy? This here rock feels like it's got a story to tell." Just then, a rustle in the brush caught Bill's attention, and he froze, the hairs on the back of his neck standing on end. Roger growled low, the sound rumbling like distant thunder. Bill's grip tightened around the box. "Come on, don't you go getting spooked on me now," he murmured to himself, trying to shake off the tension. The rustling grew louder, and Bill's heart raced. He scanned the trees, straining to see into the shadows. "Who's there?" he called, his voice steady but laced with uncertainty. Silence followed, thick and oppressive, and the shadows seemed to close in around him. Then, from the thicket, a figure emerged, a gaunt, ragged man with wild hair and eyes that glinted like dark stones in the moonlight. Bill's breath caught in his throat as he took in the sight. "What in tarnation?" he exclaimed, half in shock, half in defense. The man stepped forward, hands raised, a smile creeping across his weathered face. "Easy there, cowboy. I ain't here to cause no trouble. Just thought I'd come see what all the fuss was about." His voice was rough like gravel, but held a certain charm that set Bill slightly at ease, though he still held his ground. "What do you know about this place?" Bill asked, his voice steady as he sized up the stranger. "And what do you know about these stones?" The man chuckled, a dry sound that echoed in the quiet night. "Ah, those pretty things ain't just for show. They're part of something much bigger than you or me. They hold the memories of this land, the stories of those who've come before. You listen close enough, and they'll tell you what you need to know." Roger stepped forward, his growl fading as he studied the stranger with caution. Bill could feel the energy shift again, a crackle of electricity that seemed to pull at the very fabric of the night. "And what's it gonna cost me to hear those stories?" Bill asked, a mix of skepticism and intrigue in his tone. The man's eyes sparkled with a knowing glint. "A price, you say? Well, I reckon it's not coins you'll need, just an open mind and a strong heart. If you're willing to listen, there are secrets in these stones that could change the way you see this world." Bill exchanged a glance with Roger, who seemed to sense the weight of the moment. The night was still, the moon casting an otherworldly glow on the scene before them. Bill's pulse quickened. He felt the pull of destiny, a chance to uncover the mysteries that had haunted him since first laying eyes on the cabin. "All right then," he said, determination settling in his chest. "I'm listening." The moon hung high above, casting silver beams that danced upon the glade, illuminating the faces of the two men and the dog. Bill's heart thudded in his chest, a mixture of trepidation and excitement coursing through him. The stranger, wild-haired and ragged, stood before him like a specter from a forgotten tale, and Bill felt an instinctual urge to learn the secrets he promised. "All right then," Bill said, straightening up, his resolve hardening like the bark of the ancient trees surrounding them. "What do you reckon I need to do to listen to those stones?" "Patience, my friend," the man replied, his voice low and gravelly, like the rustle of dried leaves in the wind. "You gotta look beyond what's right in front of you. These stones are more than mere rock. They're the echoes of the past, whispers of those who tread this land before us." He motioned to the stones within the metal box. "They hold stories of heartache and triumph, of love lost and found, and of spirits that still linger, watching over this wide expanse." Bill knelt again, hands hovering above the stones, feeling the warmth radiate from them like a campfire on a chilly night. "Spirits, you say?" he echoed, glancing at Roger, whose ears were perked up, alert as a hawk on the hunt. "You mean to say there are ghosts in these here stones?" The man nodded, a wry smile creeping across his face. "Ain't ghosts like the ones you might find in a saloon on a stormy night. These are the souls of the land, bound to it by their stories, their struggles, and their dreams. You got a good heart, cowboy. If you listen close, they'll share their wisdom with you." With a deep breath, Bill reached for the deep green stone again, the one that had stirred something deep within him. This time, he pressed his palm against its surface. The moment he did, a jolt shot through him, like a thunderclap echoing in the stillness of the night. Colors erupted before his eyes, swirling visions of a time long past. He saw a woman, her dress flowing like water, standing in a field of wildflowers. She was laughing, her voice a melody that wrapped around him like a warm embrace. But the image shifted, shadows crept in, and he could see a man, dark and foreboding, watching her from the tree line, a look of hunger in his eyes. "Whoa!" Bill gasped, pulling his hand back as the vision faded, leaving him breathless. He looked up at the stranger, who was watching him with an intensity that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand tall. What was that? Who was that woman? The man's expression softened, a mix of sorrow and reverence. She was a settler, just like you. Her name was Clara. She had a heart full of dreams for this land, but there was darkness too. The man you saw, he was the shadow that haunted her, a spirit tied to this earth by his own regrets. Bill's mind raced as he processed the revelation. But how do I find out more? What happened to her? You gotta dig deeper, the man replied, his eyes glinting like stars against the vastness of the night sky. The stones will guide you, but you'll need to be brave. There's a reason you found that decayed wagon. It's all connected. Clara's story doesn't end with her. You gotta uncover the truth. Bill straightened, a newfound determination sparking within him. All right then, he said, his voice steady and resolute. Where do I start? Follow the trail of the past, the stranger instructed, his finger pointing toward the thicket that lay just beyond the clearing. The wagon you found, search it well. It holds secrets that may unravel this mystery. But keep your wits about you. The shadows don't take kindly to intrusions. With a nod, Bill stood tall, feeling the weight of the stones in his pocket. Roger, sensing the urgency, let out a low bark, his instincts sharpening as he sniffed the air. Bill knew that whatever lay ahead wouldn't come easy. "Come on, boy," he whispered to Roger, who trotted close beside him. "Let's see what the past is trying to tell us." They made their way through the underbrush, branches snapping beneath their boots, the air thick with the scent of pine and earth. The moonlight painted eerie patterns on the ground, casting long shadows that danced as they walked. Bill's mind raced with thoughts of Clara and the darkness that had tainted her dreams. He could feel the energy from the stones thrumming against his chest, urging him forward. As they approached the place where the old wagon lay, Bill's heart quickened. The decay of the wooden frame was more pronounced in the moonlight, and the remnants of rust and dirt seemed to whisper secrets of the past. He knelt beside it, running his fingers along the splintered wood. "What have you got for me?" he murmured, as if addressing the wagon itself. Roger sniffed the ground, his instincts on high alert. Suddenly he let out a sharp bark, his body tense. Bill looked up, scanning the trees, and felt a shiver race down his spine. The shadows seemed to deepen, as if they were breathing, shifting with a life of their own. The atmosphere thickened, and Bill could sense that something was stirring, something beyond the realm of the living. "Stay close, boy," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The air grew heavy, and he felt as if eyes were watching him from the darkness, unseen and waiting. "We're not alone." With renewed urgency, he turned back to the wagon, peering inside the cracked opening. As he rummaged through the remnants of old belongings, he discovered a weathered leather journal tucked away in a hidden compartment. The cover was faded, but as he opened it, the scent of aged paper filled the air, mingling with the earthy aroma of the forest. Bill scanned the pages, his heart racing as he read the familiar handwriting. "Clara," he breathed, the name rolling off his tongue like a prayer. As he flipped through the pages, he saw her words, her hopes and dreams, her fears and the darkness that had plagued her. But the last entry sent a chill down his spine. "I can feel him watching me," Clara had written, her script shaky. "I fear I may not escape this fate. If anyone finds this, know that I fought for what I loved, and I will not go quietly into the night." The wind howled through the trees, carrying Clara's words into the shadows, and Bill felt the weight of her spirit pressing down on him. He closed the journal, glancing at Roger, who was watching him with keen intelligence. "We've got to help her, boy. We're meant to finish this fight." And with that, the cowboy and his dog prepared to unearth the truth buried in the shadows, determined to confront the darkness that had haunted Clara and to bring her story into the light. The wind whistled through the pines, carrying an ominous chill as Bill's breath fogged in the night air. He clutched the journal tightly, its pages crinkling under the pressure of his fingers. Clara's words hung heavy in the atmosphere, like an unshakable burden. He felt as if the very ground beneath him was charged with energy, drawing him deeper into Clara's plight. "Roger, stay sharp," Bill instructed, glancing at his faithful companion. The dog remained poised, ears perked and nostrils flaring, alert to the unseen stirrings around them. Together, they formed a solitary pair against the looming darkness, one man and one dog, tethered by a shared sense of purpose. Bill rose to his feet, brushing dirt from his knees. The journal offered clues, but he needed more than just words. He needed tangible proof. "Let's search the wagon some more," he said, determination lacing his voice. He began rummaging through the remnants of Clara's life, each object a piece of the puzzle that had long been lost to time. He found an old leather pouch, its seams frayed but still holding together. Inside were several small polished stones, each engraved with symbols that seemed to shimmer under the moonlight. "What in tarnation?" Bill murmured, lifting one to his eye. The symbols were unlike anything he'd seen, and as he turned it in his palm, he felt a warmth radiate from it, as if the stone itself were alive. Roger approached, sniffing the stones with a mix of curiosity and caution. Bill knelt down, holding the pouch out to him. "What do you reckon, boy? These look like they might hold some kind of magic." Roger tilted his head, his eyes glimmering with understanding. "Yeah, I reckon we'll be needing a bit of that." With the pouch tucked safely in his pocket, Bill decided to explore the area further. The wagon's decay had revealed a scattering of old iron tools, rusted nails, a broken yoke, and something that caught his eye. A small, bent horseshoe. He picked it up, brushing away the grime. The horseshoe felt heavy in his hand, and as he turned it over, he noticed something etched into the metal. It was a name. Dawson. "Dawson, huh?" he said to himself, the name rolling off his tongue with a bitter taste. It sounded familiar, but he couldn't quite place it. "What's your story, old friend?" He tucked the horseshoe into his pocket alongside the pouch, already feeling the weight of their connection to Clara's history. With the wagon thoroughly searched, Bill stepped back, scanning the dimly lit surroundings. The thicket loomed like a curtain of shadows, and the shadows themselves felt alive, as if they were watching him. "Time to see what lies beyond," he declared, glancing at Roger, who remained vigilant, his gaze fixed on the trees. Bill started into the thicket, moving with cautious steps. The underbrush crackled beneath his boots, and the night sounds of the wilderness took on an eerie quality. Every rustle in the leaves and every distant hoot of an owl felt charged with an unseen tension. He focused on the trees, their gnarled branches stretching like skeletal fingers against the starry sky, as if they were reaching out to warn him. After a few minutes of careful navigation, he stumbled upon a clearing. At its center lay a small, dilapidated cabin, its walls weathered and splintered, sagging under the weight of years. Bill's heart raced at the sight. He approached the cabin, feeling an inexplicable pull toward it, as if it were a moth drawn to a flame. "Let's check it out, Roger," he whispered, stepping onto the creaking porch. The door hung ajar, swinging slightly with the wind, revealing darkness within. Bill hesitated for a heartbeat, then pushed it open wider. The door groaned in protest, echoing through the stillness. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the scent of mildew. Sunlight had long forsaken this place, leaving only the remnants of what once was. Bill's eyes adjusted to the dimness, revealing old furniture covered in sheets and cobwebs. A sense of abandonment enveloped him, but amidst the decay, he noticed something gleaming near the fireplace, a small metal box, half hidden beneath a pile of crumpled papers. "Let's see what you've got," he murmured, crossing the room to kneel by the hearth. He brushed aside the papers, revealing the box's intricate carvings. It seemed almost out of place among the disarray, a relic of something precious. He lifted it carefully, feeling the cold metal against his skin. Before he could open it, Roger let out a low growl, his body tense and alert. Bill froze, the hair on the back of his neck prickling. "What is it, boy?" he asked, glancing around the dim cabin. Shadows flickered, and the air grew heavier, thick with a presence that felt both foreboding and sorrowful. As if in answer, the room seemed to darken, the corners growing darker and more oppressive. Bill could almost hear whispers, a cacophony of voices blending into one another, but he couldn't make out the words. "Clara?" he called, his voice trembling slightly. "Is that you?" No answer came, only the echo of his own voice lingering in the air. Roger moved closer, his instincts kicking in. The dog's eyes were locked on the shadows, as if he could see what lay hidden just beyond the edge of sight. Bill's heart raced as he considered the weight of what he held, the box and its potential to reveal Clara's fate. He took a deep breath, steeling himself against the mounting tension. "All right, let's see what secrets you keep," he said, turning the box over in his hands. With a firm resolve, he pressed the latch, and as it clicked open, the air around them shifted, as if the very atmosphere held its breath. Inside lay a collection of letters, tied with a faded ribbon. They looked delicate, as if they had weathered many storms, and the ink had smudged in places, but the names written upon them were unmistakable: Dawson, Clara, and others. Bill's pulse quickened, a mix of hope and fear surging through him. "This could be it, Roger," he breathed, ready to unravel the tangled threads of Clara's past and the shadows that bound her spirit. With a newfound determination, he gathered the letters, feeling the weight of history in his hands. Whatever lay ahead, he would not turn away. He was ready to face the darkness, armed with Clara's truth. Bill carefully untied the faded ribbon, a sense of urgency prickling his skin. The letters spilled forth, yellowed pages whispering stories of love, betrayal, and desperation. He unfolded the first one, his eyes scanning the elegant handwriting of Clara Dawson. "Dearest Henry," he read aloud, "I fear for my life. The shadows that once protected me have turned against me." Bill's brow furrowed as he continued, the words painting a picture of a woman trapped in a world that had turned hostile. Clara spoke of an arrangement, a pact made with those who sought power over the land, and how she had tried to extricate herself from their grasp. The hairs on the back of Bill's neck stood on end as he processed the implications. "Roger," he said, looking at his steadfast companion, "this ain't about ghosts or curses." Clara was in over her head. He could see Roger nodding, his ears perked up and alert, as if understanding the gravity of the situation. The letters revealed a web of deception woven by a group of men who had come to claim the land and its treasures, promising Clara protection in exchange for her silence and complicity. The shadows that had haunted this cabin were not the restless spirits of the dead, but the living, lurking just beyond the edges of the thicket, still looking for what they believed was rightfully theirs. "By thunder," Bill muttered, recalling the rumors he'd heard in town about men disappearing near the old mine. They were never after Clara's spirit, but the gold hidden beneath this very cabin. He rose to his feet, determination coursing through him like a wild stallion. "We need to find out who's still involved in this business and bring them to justice." Roger barked once, as if in agreement, and together they stepped out of the cabin, the letters clutched tightly in Bill's hands. They moved back through the thicket, the shadows feeling less threatening now that they understood the truth. Each rustle of leaves and snap of twigs was a reminder that the real danger lay not in the supernatural, but in the greed of man. As they emerged from the trees, Bill noticed a flicker of light in the distance. He approached cautiously, ducking low behind a nearby rock, and peered into a small clearing where a group of men huddled around a campfire. Their faces were hardened, their eyes glinting with malice and ambition. They were discussing their next move, and Bill could make out snippets of conversation about Clara and the hidden gold. "Dawson's a fool if she thinks she can escape us," one man sneered, flicking his knife in the firelight. "We'll find that treasure even if it means making her vanish for good." Bill's heart raced, and he knew they had to act swiftly. "We can't let them get away with this," he whispered to Roger, who looked up at him with unwavering loyalty. "We need to round up the sheriff and put an end to their schemes." With a plan forming in his mind, Bill carefully retreated from the camp, making sure to stay out of sight. He and Roger slipped back into the shadows of the thicket, moving as quietly as a whisper. They made their way to town, where the sheriff's office stood, a bastion of justice in the fading light of day. Bill burst through the doors, startling the sheriff, who was busy cleaning his revolver. "Sheriff, we've got trouble brewing out there," he said, breathless from urgency. "A band of men is planning to hunt down Clara Dawson and take what's hers. They're after the gold hidden beneath her cabin." The sheriff raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "You sure about this, Bill?" "Positive," Bill replied, pulling the letters from his pocket. He laid them out on the sheriff's desk, the words of Clara laying bare the truth. "These ain't just letters, they're evidence of their treachery. We need to gather a posse and confront them before it's too late." The sheriff read through the letters, his expression growing grim. "All right, I'll rally the men," he said, rising to his feet. "We'll put an end to this once and for all." Did. With the sun sinking low in the sky, casting long shadows across the town, Bill and the sheriff led a group of men back to the clearing. The air crackled with tension, the setting sun painting the world in hues of orange and red. Bill's heart pounded as they approached the camp, the flickering fire casting dancing shadows across the faces of the unsuspecting criminals. "Hold it right there!" the sheriff bellowed, stepping into the clearing with authority. The men around the fire froze, shock and fear dawning upon them. "You're under arrest for conspiracy and attempted murder." Chaos erupted as the men scrambled to grab their weapons, but Bill and the posse were ready. Roger darted forward, barking fiercely, causing the men to stumble in their panic. With a swift flick of his wrist, the sheriff disarmed the closest man while Bill tackled another, wrestling him to the ground. In the midst of the scuffle, one man broke away, making a desperate dash for the tree line. But Roger was quicker, leaping after him and pinning him down with a growl. The remaining men, seeing their comrades captured and the odds stacked against them, surrendered one by one, the threat of their greed extinguished like the dying fire. As the dust settled, the sheriff gathered the men, binding their hands with rope. "You'll be seeing the inside of a cell for a long while," he declared, a stern look upon his face. Bill took a deep breath, relief washing over him. He glanced toward the cabin hidden among the thicket, the weight of Clara's letters still heavy in his pocket. They had unmasked the shadows that had loomed over her life, bringing justice to a wronged spirit. With the sun now dipping below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of twilight, Bill turned to Roger. "We did it, partner," he said, scratching the dog behind the ears. "Clara can finally rest easy." As they made their way back to town, Bill felt a sense of closure settle over him. The mysteries had been solved, the truth unveiled, and the innocent safe once more. He looked to the stars emerging in the night sky, a tapestry of hope shimmering above. "Let's head home, Roger. There's still plenty of trail left for us to ride." And as they journeyed into the cool embrace of the night, Bill knew that though the shadows had lingered, light had triumphed, and the spirit of Clara Dawson would no longer be tethered to the past. Together, they would forge ahead, always ready for the next adventure that awaited them on the endless frontier.